Okay.
So this meeting is being recorded in case you all want to know. But I want to get started right on time so that we, are using everybody's time well. So as you know, I asked Alice to join us today to talk about the strategic plan a bit and also, the facilities usage things that we've been talking about that you've heard a little bit about, but I wanted Alice to come on and give us a little bit more idea. And I want to make known right from the get-go that the things that she's going to show you today about the facilities are not set in stone. They're just thoughts. Like we just took a whole bunch of thoughts and threw them out on a table and we're just looking at things, but we would love to get your opinions. You can write your questions in the chat box as we go along. And at the end, I can ask Alice any of your questions, or if Alice, you prefer for them to just ask as we go, just let me know. And
ask as we go is fine.
Okay.
It can be a conversation.
Right. So I'll ask you all to mute yourselves, and then if you have a question, I'll watch, for them, and we'll just ask as we go. All right. So I remembered to hit the record button, so we are ready to go. Alice? Now you have to figure out how to share your screen. Alice and I were getting on the call and saying, oh boy, we don't have Stephanie, who's our pro, so.
All right, how am I doing?
You got it.
Okay. Yes, we're very spoiled with Stephanie, who just makes behind the scenes happen seamlessly all the time. Okay, so I thought, well, Karen said to talk about strategic plan, talk about future, and there was a whole lot to talk about. So I was trying to distill this into something that would fit in our time frame. So I've pared it down a lot. I'm going to talk about our last strategic plan with a little bit of kind of where we're thinking about for the next strategic plan, which we're working on right now. So I don't have a current plan, but if you have thoughts on strategy and what the community needs from us, now is the time to chime in and bring it up. So look.
It looks like you're showing us like your preview screen instead of your full screen.
I gotta flip that.
Just so you know.
I don't know how to do that. See, this is why we need Stephanie.
Right.
Let me.
You have
Alice,
Can
you hear me?
I can.
Put it into show PowerPoint show or view PowerPoint show.
This is when you're supposed to come over and say, I'll fix it. All right, I'm stopping share.
We had it right when we previewed it.
I know we did. Then I flipped it around. All right, what are you seeing now?
Okay, now I see the sidebar and the strategic plan. Now you got it. There you go.
That's
Perfect.
right.
That's perfect.
It looks exactly the same as when I left it. All right, you sure it's perfect?
It's perfect.
Okay. All right, here we go. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Karen. So our last, and I guess our current strategic plan has 5 pillars, and they were animals, people, justice, outreach, and sustainability. So we are going to continue forward with those 5 pillars and take a look at what we accomplished in the last plan. Our animal pillar was centered around a lot of things, but the overarching measurement was our save rate. And we ended the plan with a 92% save rate. So we are climbing and we continue to climb. And we did this through a lot of different things. Certainly it was a lot of hard work by everybody, volunteers, staff, the community, all combined to make this number happen. So we did create a few new programs. We really focused on what can we do to keep animals out of the shelter. And we've been doing that for the last 20 years, is looking at why are animals being surrendered to the shelter, and then figuring out what programs do we need to put in the middle to keep them in their homes. So we continue to do that, only the programs have different names and there's different needs in the community. So we have this thing we call gray animals, and not because they're gray, because you can see clearly they're all different shapes and sizes and colors. But these are the ones that sort of hang in that gray area that previously we probably would not have placed. So they're the ones that have really what would seem like insurmountable medical problems or behavior problems that no one wants to deal with. So we are working with these guys on the behavior side. We are figuring out who they are and what makes them go and trying to find the right people that want that kind of animal. And it's really been a full shelter effort because this is not just about behavior team making them better, but the clinic gets involved and even our marketing team is involved with how do we find people that don't want the family pet and they want that goofy cat that doesn't really want to be with them but wants to be near them, or that dog that really doesn't like kids or doesn't like anybody but you. And we're trying to find those homes that fit these animals. So we call them gray animals, and we do keep track of them very carefully and keep in touch with all the people that adopt them to make sure that they've got the resources they need, make sure they're not having any issues or problems. So we're really supporting the heck out of these guys. We also introduced our home program, and home is HOME, help and options for medical emergencies. And this has been one of those issues that has broken my heart time and time again when community members call us and they're at their wits' end and they have nowhere else to go and they have some kind of medical emergency for their animal. And up until recently, very few of them did we help, because we really didn't have enough people or enough resources to to help them. So we have gotten some funding and really put some resources behind this. So when we get that call that says my dog got hit by a car, I talked to the vet, it's going to cost me $4,000 and I don't have that. And I love my dog and I want to keep him. We can work with the pet owner. Sometimes we will take the animal into the shelter and do the surgery. Christina, who you see in the picture here, she is a whiz at orthopedic surgeries, and she has done a huge amount of those on behalf of community members that have nowhere else to go. So we're in, working at it. We probably have about 50 animals through the program so far, and those animals have stayed with their owners, and really we've stepped in the middle of them having to relinquish a pet because they love it. So that's the last thing we want to do is take a well-loved animal and say, I'm sorry, you have to bring your animal in here because you can't afford to keep it at home. So we can do that now, and it feels so much better. And I can remember phone calls with pet owners and saying, I'm sorry, we can't do it. Here's some resources we can steer you towards. And all of those resources were either hard to get, never called back. So this is what we should be doing. So that's called home. Our adoption culture, for the longest time, and you've probably all of you have been through our old adoption methodology where you take the piece of paper, you fill out a million things about yourself, about your home, about every animal you've owned, and you hand it in, and then you wait to get to talk to somebody who then takes your piece of paper and looks at it and kind of talks about all the things that you've shared. So that piece of paper is pretty much gone, and it right now has your name and address and which animals do you want to look at. And we've really opened it up to a dialogue, the whole process, where it's a conversation with the pet adopter and our staff. And it's really brought us kind of, I'll say, into their family with trying to understand what they're looking for and knowing who we have in the shelter that we can match them with. So it's really made it a team effort, and so far so good. It's working well, and we're not just doing a transaction and handing a pet off out the door. We're creating a relationship. So looking forward, if COVID taught us nothing else, it was how to be agile and nimble and able to change. So we'll continue to do that. We know our ability to do spays and neuters and animal care is not keeping up with demand. So we really need to figure out how we work together with the community to help animals. So we'll be looking at where is the need and where's the greatest need, because we cannot be everything to everybody in all of Western New York. We've got to figure out a better way. And we also know the shelter's not always the best place. Right? It's a great place to visit if you're a person, but if you're an animal, we have wonderful staff, and this is a safe haven, but it's not always the best haven for animals. And being in, I've said this a million times, being on your couch is way better than being in my kennel. So we want to get animals out of the shelter and get them into either foster homes or permanent homes, and not house most of the animals that we need to care for in the shelter. So questions or thoughts on what we've done so far with the animals?
If you have a question, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. But you have to unmute.
All right, I'm going to move on. So our second pillar was people, and we want to attract and retain the best employees and volunteers. And as you know, Karen's department is human resources, and not a lot of shelters have volunteers as part of the human resource department. I think we're one of the few, and I've had some colleagues say, well, yeah, that makes sense, that volunteers are human resources and staff are human resources. They belong as a human resource. So thank you all for being wonderful human resources. And Karen, you should be really proud of this, along with all of your volunteers. Our goal was to decrease turnover, and you had like no turnover through COVID. So a testament to all of you.
That's right. They stuck with us through thick and thin.
Yeah, and we want to keep our staff and our volunteers happy, engaged, feeling like you're productive, empowered, and just keep you contributing and helping the animals. So employee turnover, the COVID year was a topsy-turvy year for everybody, including our employees, and we lost a good handful of employees. Some of them moved on to newer, different things, kind of took that COVID moment to reassess their lives and say, this is not where I want to be the rest of my life. And so they made some decisions. Some I will share that they left because they didn't like the direction the shelter was going in, and some just left because it was just time to do the next thing in their lives, or they had children, or just those life events that happen. So for our staff, we were focused on, and this is our great staff during Spay Day, that picture. After Spay Day in February, everybody is all hands on deck for the whole day. And then we gang up in the clinic afterwards. And this is the after picture from Spay Day. But we're trying to focus on giving staff career paths, so you're not stuck in one job and there are avenues that you can travel to. Cross training is definitely helpful when somebody calls in sick and we need somebody else to answer the phone. So we're trying to do more and more cross training of volunteers and staff members. Big focus on safety, and that's not only to keep our staff and volunteers safe, but safety also saves money in workers' compensation and a whole host of things that people get hurt. We've got people that are out sick, and then we need to cover. We have overtime. Again, I mentioned our workers' comp rates, so focus on safety has really been a big plus. And for volunteers, Karen is working hard at offering up more training or different training, and like a career path for volunteers. And a lot of the volunteers have said, yes, I want to do something different or more advanced, and it's working well. You know, I'm really proud that there's nothing our volunteers don't do. And there's nothing that our volunteers aren't willing to do. So it's pretty impressive.
We are very lucky.
Mm-hmm. So our future goals, to keep that focus on retention and engagement. With COVID, we've had a hybrid workplace with some people working from home, some people in the shelter. And the challenge there was, how do you keep that culture when people aren't here to be part of it? So that's something we're thinking about. The role of health, well-being, and psychological safety, and that whole wellness concept. If people are feeling good, that's going to come forth in all the work they do. We're certainly thinking, along with everyone else in the world, about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And then recruitment. You've probably noticed, DeBella's sub shop is hiring at $15 an hour, and that impacts us because I think I've never worked at DeBella's, but I'm thinking our jobs are way harder than working at DeBella's making subs. So how do we attract staff at not quite $15 an hour, a little bit higher than that? But how do we attract them and keep them in such a tight labor market? It's been a real challenge. So our third objective is humane law enforcement. We call this one justice. And some of the great things we did with this pillar was we conducted 3 animal crimes conferences for our law enforcement colleagues, and had about 100 participants every year. And during the COVID year, we couldn't have a conference, but prior to that, we were thinking about how do we really use this opportunity to reach more people. So we were ending our animal crimes conferences at 3 and going to switch to a different format when COVID happened. We did launch a private Facebook group, which I think you may have heard about in one of these calls, but that's geared towards our law enforcement colleagues, police, sheriff, district attorneys, as a private spot to share things about humane law enforcement with that group of people. And we continue to make great strides working alongside the district attorney, who prosecutes all of the arrests that we make, and also try to make connections. And our new mission is together with our community, and I keep saying together because that's the only way we're going to get forward, is if we do it together and not say we can do it all by ourselves, because we can't. So Farm Bureau is one of those connections, and we continue to look for places where we can work together with the community. We had 2 public service campaigns was part of this goal, and that was the Too Hot for Spot and Too Cold for Spot. The ACIP program was our Animal Crimes Intervention Program, and we were ready to launch that. And that's a diversion program for people that have been arrested for animal cruelty charges, and rather than serve a sentence, they can have this as part of a plea bargain, where they need to attend a course on being kinder to animals and looking at reasons why they may have abused animals. So this will be back in action hopefully this fall, and we'll have our very first class. And we serve 4 counties with our Humane Law Enforcement Department. So we've been having active conversations with those counties on, how do we work with them better? Sometimes with 4 officers, we can't be everywhere. So having that dialogue with the counties and knowing what they can do for themselves and what we need to get involved with is important. So what we're thinking about moving forward is accreditation, because humane law enforcement departments don't have accreditation. And if you look at our department, I'm a little biased, but I think we are probably the best run humane law enforcement department in the state. So developing what our standards are and sharing those with the rest of New York State is where we're headed in the future. The next thing we're thinking about is memorandums of understanding with the municipalities that we serve and that we assist, to just make sure we know what they're doing and they can count on what we're doing. And then something new, which will be eventually a volunteer opportunity as well, is a field response team. And these are the kind of the feet on the street for a disaster, and the people that run in and, as the fire department are closing down the house, our people are running into the house to get the animals out, not during the active fire, but really working alongside in disaster situations and helping the animals. So right now we're recruiting a team of staff members to do that, and they will be trained and drill and work alongside the county animal response team. And eventually volunteers will be part of that team as well once we figure out exactly how we're doing it. So any questions so far on our first two objectives, our first three objectives?
Don't be shy.
All right, you're just holding it up, holding all the comments for the next part. So goal 4 was about outreach, and we wanted to expand opportunities to provide pet owners with information and services for caring for their animals. And the second thing was developing additional resources for pet owners that want to keep their pets, like I mentioned in the home program, but need some temporary help to get them through a crisis. So what we did there, we shifted our approach to talk, have one-on-one conversations with pet owners and find out exactly what they need, and then work towards getting them what they need. So Pet Pantry was one of those programs. And during COVID, I think we delivered 3,000 or 4,000 pounds of pet food, which was about double what we usually do, but helped people through a tough time with some pet food. The home program had its inception last year, and then our Mary Ellen program is a program where we help people that are in temporary crisis for short term, and we take their animals into the shelter, sometimes foster care, but help them through that crisis where they can't physically keep their pets. So we helped expanded that program and have helped a lot of people, and we'll continue that program because it is becoming more and more needed in the community. Continued and trying to figure out going forward is access to basic pet wellness and vaccines for people that can't afford even basic vaccines. And how do we do that, or who do we partner with that can help bring those things to the community? And I mentioned Mary Ellen program, and then the other big piece of this is building that capacity, because with 3 veterinarians we can't do it. So we need to work with the vet community and get their help, and together do it with them. So this was a quote. I quote Adrienne McCarg, our director of communications and development, and she said, in the US, 95% of pet owners consider their pets to be part of the family, which is up 7 points in the last 10 years. Animal welfare has been co-evolving to a new approach that considers animals as part of family systems. And Lollipop Farm's role is that we can transform the lives of pets by honoring the love people have for their pets and close that service gap that exists for people and pets. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we're heading with the new strategic plan, is pets are definitely part of the family.
Good question. You're talking about association with local vets. Do you ever get the sense that any of the vets consider, local veterinarians consider you to be competition for them, taking away business?
Do you know, in the past, I heard that a lot. Currently, I'm not hearing that at all. And in fact, we've get a lot of phone calls or referrals directly from veterinarians when they've got a client that can't afford and they don't want to just send the client away. They want to help the client, and they know, sometimes we're the only place that's going to have that help available. So we've gotten multiple phone calls directly from the emergency clinic in Henrietta saying, I've got a client here and we can't help them. Can you? So it's really turned around a lot in the last probably 3 years, where vets, I'm not hearing at all that we're competing. And truly, we're not competing. We're doing spays and neuters, and that's not a profitable thing for veterinarians. And we're helping the people that aren't walking into the vet offices anyway. And if they are walking into the vet offices, the vet's saying, here's what it's going to cost, and they're walking out. So that is a great question, because it's been a sea change. So future goals for outreach is address that. How do we give people affordable, low-cost services? Community cats still an issue. We've been working at that for decades, and I'm so happy to say, 15 years ago, our cat intake was over 10,000 cats, and now our cat intake is like under 3,000. So we have really addressed a lot of our problems with cats through spay and neuter, but we're not done. So looking at community cats and how do we help them and the people that care for them. Helping families with pets, and you may have heard some of these models tossed around. One is called the Haas model, which is human animal social services, and it's basically working with one-on-one with pet owners and keeping pets in homes. The One Health model is a national model. You can read more about it on the CDC website, but that is kind of recognizing that animals are part of the family, and that usually if there's a problem, it's not just the animal that has a problem, it's the family that has a problem too. So getting the animal help and the family help is what the One Health model is all about. And then together with our community, building connections, I think is the grand theme of a new plan. It's not going to happen inside this building all alone. It's got to be in conjunction with the community. All right, objective 5, sustainability is not the green kind. Well, it's the green cash kind, to make sure that we are here for the future and helping people and animals. And we've been here 150 years as of 2023. We're working on what to do to celebrate that anniversary, but we want to be here the next 150. So we need to make sure the things we're doing today are going to put us in a good place to be here, long beyond the time I'm here, or even all of you are here. So we're looking at maintaining or building our endowment funds. We have capital reserves are, well, it's money and devoted to making sure we have money to do all the renovations that the shelter needs for the future. So we built this, I won't even call it a model. We did a big giant list of everything in the shelter that we were going to have to fix or replace over the next 20 years. And that includes a roof, it includes floor tiles, you name it. We looked at it and put it on a list and said, here's how much it's going to cost us. So we want to make sure that we are steering towards having enough money to be able to replace all these things as they need replacement. So that's what that capital reserve fund will do. And part of the path to that is to work on our major gift program and our planned giving programs. So I'll put in a plug for our planned giving program. If you haven't considered leaving something in your will to help future animals, think about it. And you can either let Karen know, let me know, or let Kathy Wright know. And we'd love to talk more. And then the other big piece of our sustainability pillar and goals was to create a facilities master plan, which looked at our interior and exterior campus and plotted out with that 20 to 50 year horizon, what does this look like and what do we need to think about and what do we need to do for the animals, for the community, and for the community. So that kind of is my launching board to talk a little bit more about the future of the facility and the farm.
Excellent segue, by the way.
All right, now my time. All right. Anyone need like a drink or?
We all came prepared. You're the one who needs it. You're doing all the talking.
Mm-hmm. All right, so our new strategic plan, which is in the works now, will cover a 3-year period. Part of it is to reimagine, I call it Farm 2.0, but it could be Farm, pick a number. And it's to re-envision our campus in and out, to focus on our dual roles of humane education for people and animal care. So I give those equal weight, because we're here to teach the future generations of animal caregivers, and we're also here for today's animals. So I've got a lot of pictures. So if something is like you react to either like very well or very poorly, chime in. Karen said use your chat, so you can do that, or you can just chime in verbally. So this is pretty hard to look at. Can you see my cursor? Maybe? No. No? All right.
First word is that we'll
There it
see
is.
it.
It appeared.
Right here or there?
Try cursing and then we'll see it.
Okay. Gosh.
There it
Anyway.
goes.
This is a PG
No, it's
meeting.
over here. All right. So this is Victor Road on the bottom of your map, just to get you oriented. And this is our property. Goes up into the hills where that swirly thing on the left is, and our building is kind of front and center. The trolley bed is that piece that juts off to the right at an angle. So this was a conceptual drawing of our outdoor campus, and it took in mind some work we did on our interior, saying, what does life look like right now, and what does life look like in the future, and how much space do we need to conduct our lives? So we had just about every staff member work on this and figured out, what's working in the building, what's not. Like, do we need office space, or do we need more dog kennels, or what does the space look like, and what will we need in the future? So we have a hypothetical on this map where we have reserved room on the campus to put 2 or 3 new buildings, and not that we're going to, but we reserve the space to do it. So we know here's a future space place. So don't put something on here that is going to have to stay forever. Like a pet cemetery. You wouldn't put the pet cemetery, which is a permanent structure, where you might need to put a building. So this calls for potentially putting a building, if we need space, in the front of the building, kind of out towards the front lawn, attached to this building. Or if you're facing the building, we could put a structure to the left of the building, or we could go out the back of the building. This part on the right is parking lot. And even now with staff and visitors that we have, parking is tight. So eventually we're going to need a parking lot. Where would you put a parking lot? So this kind of reserves room for all of these things. Again, hypothetical. We have a low point. We are on a hill, and our low point is near the horse pastures and near that front retention pond, and all of our water drains that way. So we fight it all the time with muddy horse pastures, and we did some renovation with horse pastures to alleviate that flooding. But this kind of says it's going to flood, so stop fighting Mother Nature and let it flood and make it a pond and put some turtles there. So just a thought. So this, again, outdoor campus, the left side is actual aerial shot, shows our nature trails in blue. And then there's the cartoon shot on the right side. So any new plans, we would want to really look at our whole campus and engage people with our beautiful forest. It's relatively unused, and it's really got a wealth of opportunity up there. You may have heard that we bought the property across the street from Lollipop Farm to the east. So we're also looking at, what does that look like? We've been chatting with the town of Parenton, who operates Egypt Park on the corner. We own the land, they operate the park there. And we've had a long-term lease, and we've been talking with them about what does it look like if we move the park across the street, and then we take all the land on this side of Victor Road. So I don't know what that looks like, but that's some of the things we're chatting about and saying, what if? So this is current day. This is our new partially fenced horse pastures. We didn't do the south side pastures because not quite sure we are going to keep those as horse pastures. But this is our brand new fencing and farm. The intent of any kind of restructuring or rebuilding we do out there would be to keep this vibe. It's beautiful. This is the backside of the farm trail. We put this not in there yet, but we launched our story walk a couple months ago, which it's a walking story essentially with boards that tell a story, an actual book with activities that go along with the boards. So you can see families that stop, they read the story, and then they have a little activity to do right then. And one of them was a cat looking up at the stars, and the activity was, reach your hands to the stars and walk to the next story page. So you can see people out there with their hands reaching up to the stars, walking along the farm path. So it's a lot of fun. So we'd like to do more of that, engaging people and, getting them to think not only about the story, but kind of the bigger picture and, the landscape and the world behind the story. So the outdoor campus, parking I mentioned, bathrooms. We don't have bathrooms out there, and that would be really nice for not only our staff that work out there, but our visitors that have kids that need the bathroom, but it's all the way back in the building. Creating better walking trails and paths through the farm, more educational signage to tell the story about animals, and interactive activities, as we know from our humane education programs that children, adults learn better when they're doing and not just reading things. Like to expand our lollipop shop and have some kind of a concession cafe, something you can get a little something to eat. Because that's, we have water and, some cheese doodles, Remleys, available in the lollipop shop now, but, a little something more substantial than that for people to have bite to eat. Like to look at the barn space and space for events as well as animal housing. Our indoor barn has never quite worked well as an indoor barn, so looking at reclaiming the indoor barn as shelter space and creating a new barn outside for those animals. So here's just some kind of thoughts and a vibe around learning and gathering spaces. We've talked a lot about outdoor classroom space, which this would be great for, activity space for kids, kind of free form, just get together and here's a spot to get together in. This is, again, kind of speaks to vibe, and this is just, a beautiful, serene place that people can go and visit, and dogs are welcome. We've got this dream of, all right, I've been calling it the party barn. It's not necessarily a party barn, but could be used for parties, but could be used for farm camp. Could be used for staff meetings. It could be used for that giant cruelty case that we get in, and we need a large space to, triage. It could be anything, but putting a large space outside. Pavilion space is on that bottom area. We've been looking at other places, say, what do they look like? How are they doing it? So if you do have any places that you've been to and you think, wow, that was a great experience, or here's how they set it up, or here's an interactive activity they had, that would be really neat. Send those along. Now is the time. So we're looking, and not just at animal sanctuaries, kind of looking at any kind of community space. We can take ideas from anywhere. This is a sketch. It's not our sketch. I kind of borrowed it from another place that was building an equine arena, which we have, but this could be something to think about as our large barn space. We need our farm staff really has no office. There's one small office by the indoor barn, but it's as far away as you can get from the animals. So we'd love to move them out so they can be on the farmyard with the animals that they're helping and caring for. So just another thought on a outdoor structure. If nothing else, the chain link fences are going to go away, and we'll replace all of those with something a little nicer. Basically chain link was the cheapest thing and easily put up and down as the animal population changed. But would love to make that go away because it really looks like animals are being kept in jail. And that's the farthest from what we want people to think and the farthest from what they are. And then, looking at learning and what we do for learning. Someone have a thought, question? So to make it a learning and fun space. So top is like a photo op area with the girl with the pumpkin. The bottom right is, I'm not sure exactly how that works, but you're supposed to guide that thing through the corn maze. We've talked about a little humane themed animal mini golf course. And on the top right is pet rocks that were all painted. So just something fun for kids to learn with. Clearly our farm is about the animals and their habitats. And so looking at what are the best habitats for the animals. And this is just the cutest thing with that little pig there. Looking at enriched environments, giving them things like we do the indoor animals, things to think about, things to do, and make sure we're addressing not only their, the physical needs, but their mental and emotional needs as well. So it's not just the pigs and the fowl that have enrichment, it's the goats and the sheep and everybody out there. So this first time I saw this, Adrian McHarg included this picture. I said, what is that? And that's like a little tiny house. It is what it is. And the thought there was we could engage volunteers to come. They could spend an overnight and volunteer, or many overnights, and help the animals and actually live right out there on the farm. So it's a tiny house for volunteers. Coming inside the shelter, we've got a need for quarantine and isolation space, both inside and outside the shelter. So we need to look at the inside of the shelter and build out some space or repurpose space for those animals that need either quarantine or isolation. Law enforcement would love to have separate housing, and I did the after and before here. This is the same dog. This is Ivy, who was part of a cruelty case. that went on for the better part of a year. Ivy on the right, when we got her in, Ivy, scored it really well with a great home, and she looks great now. But having better housing, appropriate housing for our law enforcement animals, if we need to keep them in the building. We certainly prefer to keep them in foster care, which we have permission from the district attorney to do, but some of them need to stay here. So working on separate housing for them. Our small animal housing is woefully inadequate, and we're seeing more and more small animals coming into the shelter. So this picture on the left is yesterday in our small animal room. The middle two guys are rats on the top and a reptile on the bottom. But that room is packed with any species you can think of, and it's really way too small, and it's not great housing for them. So to build out some better housing. Our bird room just had a makeover, and that's our adoptable birds, but we really don't have a lot of space for the non-adoptable ones that we're working with. Dogs, what was state of the art 20 some odd years ago when we built the shelter is not quite so state of the art anymore. We've just put these blue privacy panels up to help reduce stress, but really 6 kennels in a room that echoes is not an ideal housing situation for dogs. So to really look at that, and maybe it's 2 dogs in that kind of space with different kenneling, but we'll be doing a lot of research on that. We do like, this is on the right side, the Haley Policini dog adoption wing, which you'll probably recognize. We do like the separate suites and the kind of street of shops look, but what's behind all the doors really needs to change. So cats, our renovated areas are nice, and we love those. We need a few more spaces for the spirit cats, the ones that are really shy, that are hiding. And we've commandeered a couple of bathrooms and converted them into shy cat space, but we'd really like to turn the bathrooms back over to our staff and give the cats their own space in the future. The things you can't see, mechanical upgrades. You may have noticed them when you walk in and you've gone from the new parts of the building to the old, and just the quality of the air is very different. So we need HVAC upgrades, we need lighting. Would love to look at all lighting and get LED lighting throughout the shelter. Technology is changing all the time, so keeping up with technology. And while storage is not mechanical, it was sort of one of those things you don't see, so I put it here. We have very little storage space, which leads to a lot of clutter and disorganization throughout the building. And our people. People need space, including our volunteers. Volunteers have your small sign-in room, and that's about it. There's the break room, which is on the right, and this was today at lunch. That's pretty much full capacity for the break room. 5 or 6 people we have a staff of 110 people. So there's clearly no place for our staff to go or our volunteers to go. This is our operations team. I just like the photo, so I put that in. It's their ugly Christmas sweater photo. But our people really make the place go, and they need a place to get out of their daily what they're doing and just take a minute and relax. So we're envisioning a larger break room, a library space that's quiet. We've got a building full of readers. It's been suggested we have a nap pod if you need a nap during the day on your lunch break, that you've got a spot to go. So really building some people space in light of wellness and health being so important to what we do. And your thoughts?
This is where you all get to talk now.
Yeah, I'm going on mute.
Well, Alice, I think that was a wonderful presentation. It shows an awful lot of thought has gone into this by, I'm sure, a lot of people. And it set my mind at ease because you hear rumors and thoughts, this is going to be changed and that's going to be changed. I think what you've shown us, these are all very positive things for Lollipop Farm. One thing I'd like to add to your list, because you only have 1,000 of them, but your home program, which I didn't even know about until a few months ago, that's a wonderful program. And I can understand why that does not get publicized a lot, because you'd have a lot of people abusing such a program that they could bring their animal in for free veterinary service. So the way it works obviously is good the way it is. I would like to see that extended to animals that are not still at home with their owners, but who have come to us and say because of their age, like you get a, well, my favorite, is a golden retriever. It's 13 years old. We know that dog probably is on very much borrowed time, as I am, but I can still afford my doctor. A lot of people would be afraid to take that animal home as much as they would love it, because they know that the veterinary bills are likely to be high. We all know that as soon as you walk through the doors of a vet office, you have a $100 bill. And if we could do a program like this where a dog that starts to languish at Lollipop Farm looking for a home because it has a high risk attached to it as far as health, if the home program could be extended to those animals, to make it more likely that someone would say, yes, I will take this animal home, adopt it. Then for its yearly checkup, or if something goes wrong, they know they could bring it back to our veterinary clinic for care. I know there's costs involved, but now that you have expanded the veterinary care, we have a number of vets, it may be a feasible thing. So that's my thought, and I'll sit to the side.
Well, it could even be like I mean, it's a great idea. It could be even a creative variation on that. If the cost is maybe too high, have something where your maximum cost would be X. And then if it goes above and beyond that, you know, something along those lines, maybe, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, because we have done things like that on certain circumstances with our foster program, when we put an animal on like permanent foster, and all of the care that that animal gets is back here in the shelter. But it's not, you know, it doesn't have a name like home, and it's
We
one
call
by
it
one.
hospice.
Hospice.
Hospice. You're fostering a hospice animal.
But I think we could make that a program, you know, and actually name it something and market it as such.
Well, I gave you the alphabet rooms as a name a while ago, so I'll see if I can come up with something on that. And Gary will always get a better one than I have, so. Don't wait till I come up with one, he'll get a better one.
I just wait for you to come up with a good idea, then I see what I can pilfer.
Yeah, so Gary, like, you know, your copay is, if you needed something, or, you know, the most we'll charge you for this animal over the rest of its life is, you know, $100 a year or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Got a high
Great idea.
deductible plan.
Yeah.
great idea.
Hi guys, it's Marge. I think the plan about helping the older animals, especially if there's a senior, like you have the free cats over 6 years of old age for seniors being free, maybe some kind of a senior discount for the seniors if they have, if they've gotten a cat or a dog or a pet from Lollipop. I don't know if that would work at all.
Anyone else?
I have a question and maybe a suggestion. I don't know. Do you know if it's ever going to be possible to take like wildlife or like injured wildlife, do wildlife rehab? Or is that something that we're prohibited from doing? I was just curious. This might be a good idea. I was thinking about it, you know, we did just, expand and stuff.
Is that me, Karen, or you want to?
I don't know. I mean, I know we work with local wildlife rehabs, but, and I think once upon a time we took wildlife, but I don't know if there's laws around that or not.
Yeah, there is licensing, and we don't have a license to deal with wildlife, and it's not in our plans to get licensed.
Okay.
Because that's, it's a big commitment, and it's 24-hour commitment, and I think our focus is more on the livestock and the pets.
Okay. I'm just curious.
We
And
do
we have
we do have lots of resources though, that if someone does call us, we can refer them, so.
Okay. I knew it was probably a real big commitment and real big thing. I'm sure there are laws and stuff like that. So I was just kind of curious if, we were ever thinking of that, but it sounds like it's just too much. So.
Yeah, it does come up a lot, Amy. Usually once a year is, what are we gonna do with wildlife? But our decision is to not actively take them in, but to partner with, we've got great rehabbers in our community, to work with them to refer people. We take a lot of phone calls about wildlife, and we talk people through a lot of things, and that's kind of where we've elected to keep our role, is on the being a resource for, what do I do? Answering questions and referring people to actual rehabbers that can help, or veterinary offices that are licensed.
Okay.
Sometimes we have to make decisions that, is this a program that's worth it for us, or are there other people out there already doing it and doing it better? So sometimes we just have to leave it up to them to, we can only take on so much. So if there's people already doing it and doing it well, then we move on to something different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just stay focused on the domestic animals.
Yeah.
It was actually good because I called, I think it was a couple weeks ago, must have been the July 4th weekend, and there was an injured mouse on my property, and it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing. So I actually called Lollipop first, and I don't remember who took it, but they helped me and directed me towards a couple of resources, just what to do. So that was very useful.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions about the strategic plan, where we're going, what we're doing, all the behind the scenes stuff that goes on? Okay. Well, if you do come up with more questions as you think about this, or I am recording this and I will send the link out so you can watch it again if you've missed parts of it, or you wanted to go back and check on something, feel free to send me emails. And I tell you guys this all the time, I don't know all the answers, but I know who to go to get them. So if you do think of things, like when you're in the shower, that's when I always come up with my great ideas. Feel free to wait till you get out of the shower and then email me what you thought about. So in the meantime, we will let Alice get back to what she does best, running the shelter. And then we can continue on with our meeting.
All right. Well, thank you for having me and listening. And thank you all again for what you do. And we really could not do what we do without you.
Thank you,
so much.
Alice.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Appreciate it.
Good timing, Marilee, is like applause. So how is everyone? I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks at least.
Doing well.
Good.
Yeah.
Doing okay.
Good.
I thought
Right.
somebody stepped on Max's tail.
Oh, Max was choking on a cheese doodle.
No, he finished them.
I'm all done with those.
No. Got it.
All right, well, I will give you our normal numbers that we always go over. So total animals as of yesterday in the shelter was 607. So we're down quite a bit from where we used to be in the 715s and stuff. 218 of those animals are out in foster, which totally goes with the new direction that the shelter's going in, with trying to get animals out into foster and not keep them in the stressful shelter environment. So I'll break down the numbers for you. We have 277 animals in the shelter, 99 on the farm, and let's see, it's 11, 12, 13 out at the Pet Saver Plus locations in Brighton, Greece, and Webster. Yesterday, we took in 14 animals, 9 cats, 1 dog, 1 mammal. Then we also had 2 dogs returned and 1 stray cat brought in. And out, we had 10 cats adopted, 1 dog adopted, 3 birds, 1 rabbit, and 2 rodents, for a total of 17 adoptions yesterday. Just to catch you up on the rabbit population, we were at 95 rabbits after we had that big case. We're down to 77, so that means, you know,
Good.
all of those have been adopted out. We should start bringing in more rabbits from out in foster as soon as we can get space in the clinic to do surgeries and can get even more out into homes adopted. So, did someone have a question? No, okay. Let's see. What else did I want to tell you? I think that was it. I think that was all the news there was about numbers.
Which
There are a
were
lot
the
of baby.
2 dogs that came back to us?
Do I
Never
know who
named.
they were?
Yeah,
No, the report doesn't give me names, so I'm not sure who they were.
I'm always worried when I hear that.
Yeah, sometimes it's just one that went to like a sleepover and didn't work out, and they come back. So they go out of the number, they come back in the number. I mean, I haven't heard anything that bad that has brought any animal back, like a bite or anything like that. So, so I think it might have just been a sleepover situation, but they decided. I know there was a woman who was looking at a dog and she had the dog on hold. Not that that would change the numbers, but this is just something that happens. And she played with it. She loved it. She put the dog on hold. She was going to adopt it. Then she went home and thought about it and thought, I'm 70 years old. I don't need a 90-pound dog who's young and, you know, rambunctious. So she changed her mind. So that sometimes happens on these sleepovers too. So I
For the
should
bunny-
that not mine.
Oh,
Go ahead. Amy.
sorry. For the bunnies, are those the baby bunnies that are going to get, they're out in foster?
Baby bunnies are out in foster, but also when we had that big Mount Morris case,
Yeah,
we got in all those rabbits. A lot of those rabbits are still out in foster as well.
okay.
Yeah.
Man, I saw 2 at my local pet saver. Man, it was tempting, but they were
Yeah.
too gray. They were just, that's the thing about being at the shelter. I don't know how you can work at a shelter, only because you'd be so, at least for me anyway, I'd be tempted to take them all home.
Well, we have law enforcement that stops us from doing that.
Oh, that's good.
You don't want to be called in for a hoarding case when you work there.
Yeah, that'd kind of be a
They
problem.
probably wouldn't like that.
Yeah, I just feel so bad for all I don't know, you gotta let them go to other good homes.
Yeah,
but-
well, that's the thing. You have to remember that. I mean, yes, we say the shelter is stressful and, you know, it's not the greatest environment for them, but they are being very well taken care of. A lot of
Yeah.
times better than they ever have been taken care of. And it's a temporary situation for them. So, you know, they're all going to find a loving home. It's not like we're going to say, oh, your time is up. We don't do that. So, you know,
Yeah,
and the more fosters we have, the more we can send them out into homes and not have them in the shelter. So, I mean, they're really getting the best of care that they possibly can. So,
yeah, well, that's good. Yeah,
that's what you have to tell yourself when you look at them. Like, I don't need to save them all. There's other people out there that can do this. too.
I know. Plus,
I
plus
gotta
don't
run.
think
I gotta go play Uber for Carol.
Okay. Bye, Max. Thanks.
Hi, Max.
No, you know what? I'm gonna stop recording here. We don't need to record this part.